When she calls you, it's nearly midnight. She still has the same number, and seeing it flash on your cell screen makes your heartbeat triple its normal rate. You have no reason to pick up. You haven't had a good reason in years. But this time, at this hour, you click the little green icon. Her voice sounds odd, like she's been drinking sawdust and glue. You don't say anything yet, just wait for her to get the words out. The sentences are clipped, though not in anger, but in trepidation and confusion, like she doesn't understand something. She asks for your presence. It should be a simple question, but it's surrounded by vague phrasing, as if she's unclear on why she needs you. The picture becomes a hair clearer when she mentions the hospital, room 1204. She asks for you again, but this time, it sounds like a broken plea. She's scared. You tell her you'll be there. You're not allowed in as a visitor until after 8 a.m., so you're forced to wait until the next day to see her. When you call her from the parking garage of the hospital, her voice is small and defeated as she accepts what neither of you can change. You promise her you'll be back, though, a small consolation for her to hold on to. When you inquire about what's happened, she says she'd rather explain in person, as she's too tired at that moment. You relent, not wanting to push her too much. You know what that feels like. You give her a brief goodnight and hang up. The next day, you're there as soon as the clock on your phone turns to 8 o'clock. You write your name in the visitor's book and receive a sticker to put on. You traverse the familiar halls and wait for an elevator to transport you to the 12th floor. The smell of antiseptic is threatening to make your stomach sick, but you take a few deep cleansing breaths to calm yourself. It's not that the chemical itself upsets you, it's the memories that are attached. When you step off the elevator, you immediately begin counting the doors until you come to the right one. 1204. You knock, in case she's not ready for someone to enter. But you hear the weak welcome from the other side of the faux wood door. You push it open, expecting to see that familiar face. And it is familiar, but also tired-looking, worn and drawn in the worst ways, sitting in a sunny room. There's a bandage around her head and an IV running to her left arm. You want to inspect the other obvious signs of injury, but it's the one on her head that makes you pause. She smiles when you step in, something like hope sparking in her eyes. The expression is so genuine that it startles you into giving a small smile of your own. She croaks out a hello, and you wave a hand. The moment has a delicate air about it, as if you've stepped into a bubble. So, you tread lightly. Your first question isn't, "Why did you call me?" Instead, you ask how she is, taking a seat in the chair on the right side of her bed. She gives a crackly laugh, shaking her head a bit. She says she's beyond confused. There was an accident, and she can't remember things. It's an answer lacking depth, and it doesn't tell you what you want to know. But then you realize it does. You're among the things she doesn't remember. Even as she says, with a degree of relief, your number is the first that came to her mind. She'd memorized it years ago, and to her, it's a good thing, since her cell phone was destroyed in the accident. But her confusion deepens as she wonders why you weren't her emergency contact. It's her neighbor across the hall, an elderly lady whom you'd only met once. You suggest that perhaps it's better because of proximity, pointing out the clothes that had been brought for her. You don't bring up the other reason. She lies back and stares at the white tiles on the ceiling, releasing a breath like a balloon deflating. Then her head lolls toward you, and a frown mars her face. She's happy you're here now, but in a quiet voice, she admits that it was frightening to wake up alone. She thought her family would be there, at least for something like this. She's too scared to ask the nurses if they visited her during her stay. Something in her gut is telling her they haven't, though. You don't comment. It's not the time. But you reach out and lay a hand atop hers. You're glad she called and told you. Strangely enough, you mean it. And though the words are civil, they make her face brighten. You visit again the next day, bringing her a bouquet. It's vivid and vibrant in color, something you know will delight her. When you enter with it, she gives a little clap and sits up out of her slumped state. Memories of her doing that whenever she receives something nice pop up, and it sweetens the delivery a touch. The nurse at her side smirks and warns against too much activity. The IV bag is getting changed, and you watch, knowing the exact procedure. She asks if any of her family has reached out to you, and you give a brief shake of your head. You offer to call them later, and that pacifies her enough not to press. You can tell she wants to, though, as is her nature. The nurse gives her a few other reminders, then tells you what she should and should not be doing in her state. You agree to make sure she does the correct things, and she shoots you a playful glare. Sighing, you sink into that same chair by her bed, and she turns on her hip to face you better. You ask if she's gotten much sleep, and right on cue, she yawns. She says the doctors encourage her to sleep as much as she can for better recovery. Placing the bouquet down gently on the table next to her bed, you nod. She laughs and apologizes in advance if she falls asleep while talking, but you wave her off. It won't bother you. You understand how important recovery is. Her eyes drop to the large scar winding around your wrist, trailing up your arm and disappearing underneath the short sleeve of your shirt. Her brows pull downward. For a beat, she's silent. Then she asks what happened. She doesn't remember any scar like that. You tug at your sleeve, feeling self-conscious. But you can't hide it, so you stop trying and let your hand fall back to your lap. You tell her it's a long, confusing story that you don't think she's up for hearing right now. Her gaze flicks to yours, and she says to tell her at a later time. Your nod isn't convincing enough because she asks you to promise her. You don't answer. Instead, you get up and grab the heavy blanket, dragging it up and over her body. You mention that you see the goosebumps on her skin and don't want her to feel cold. But she says they're not from the cold. On a whisper, she confesses that she feels like something is wrong. Something in her life is wrong, but she can't pinpoint the memory. and the more she tries, the further away it feels. You tell her that it must be frustrating not to remember what she wants, but you also encourage her not to worry herself so much. It's not what she needs to focus on right now. Then, because you're feeling compassionate, you drop a kiss on her forehead. The breath she releases is more telling than any words she could utter. You stop by after work one day, only 2 days after your last visit, and her eyes light up as if she's been given a Christmas present. She tells you that she's been missing you. You smirk, joking that it's only been 2 days, not 2 years. The more accurate timeline seems to jar something in her brain, though, and her smile drops. She tilts her head, staring at you as if she's trying to read your mind. You try not to let yourself react to the slip. After a moment, you raise an eyebrow like nothing is wrong and ask if everything is all right. She shakes her head, shaking off the thought. In her words, a memory felt like it was trying to ignite, but water doused it. She also says that she's been missing you more than just 2 days' worth of missing someone. It's an odd sentence, but you understand her meaning. She's staring down at her hands, picking at the tegaderm on the back of one. A nervous habit she's always had, fidgeting when she's feeling overly emotional. You sit down and slide a hand over hers. When she looks at you, tears are threatening to fall from her lower lids. I miss you. The words feel too heavy with meaning for you to ignore them. Something has crept into her consciousness. That much you can tell. The memory is missing, but the feelings in her body are still there. You grip her hand, palms pressed together tightly. You tell her not to miss you. You're there. At most, you're only a phone call away. A 13-minute drive in your Toyota. It makes her smile, though it's not as radiant as before. You hold on to the other side of her as she takes tentative steps forward down the buffed floors of the hospital hallway. The nurse in front of her is coaching, telling her how great she's doing. On the other side, she's holding onto her IV pole, using it as a crutch. This nurse is cheery, which lifts the mood of the whole activity. At first, she was sullen, remembering the day before, when she had to try without your help. She'd almost fallen and had to be wheeled back to her room. It made it difficult to get her out of bed today. But at your promise of croissants from her favorite bakery 3 streets away, she agreed. Now, with excitement, she tells you that this is farther than she'd gotten yesterday. The nurse makes a whooping sound, and it makes you both laugh. She whispers that she likes this nurse, and you whisper back that you do too. By the time you get her back to the room, she collapses in exhaustion. You hadn't gone far, and this is something that you also remember the feeling of doing. Except she's having more coordination issues than you, and that makes you stop your self-pitying sooner. Shifting to her side, she reaches a hand out, getting your attention. She asks to lie together like you used to, back when university was too hard and you both felt like giving up. The question makes you lock up, the request for intimacy a touch too far. You could do everything else. Take care of her like there had been no space, no years, no injury, both physical and mental. But this, what she's asking for, is like asking for the pain to be erased altogether. You haven't been able to do that, even on your best days. You hesitate too long, and she withdraws her hand. In a voice you almost can't hear, she asks what she did. The worst part of you wants to leave her in confusion, to nurse wounds that still feel open. But the better part of you can't stand seeing her in such a bewildered state, grasping at love and receiving none. So, you shove your instincts down and still the swinging of that warning bell in your mind. You toe off your shoes and motion for her to make room. With concentrated effort, she manages to clear a space for you on the bed, and you get in beside her. She lays her head on your shoulder as you lie on your back, eyes glued to the paste-colored ceiling above. Her body curls into your side, getting as close as she can. You swear you can smell her regular perfume through the hospital soap. Her voice is quiet as she wonders if her life will ever stop feeling like the slowest roller coaster ride she's ever been on. You assure her that it will. She makes a noise that indicates she doesn't believe you, but stays silent. Her arm sneaks across your waist, as if waiting to be scolded. In a different circumstance, she would have been. But not today. Not in this situation. Not like this. Your eyes drift shut as her breathing slows. You shift closer as she does the same. And before you know it, you both have gotten the best sleep you've had in years. Before you know it, you're also helping her settle back into real life. The months have flown by, and somehow, you're still there. She's made peace with the fact that her family has only seen her a handful of times. Each time, perplexing silence was the loudest thing heard in the room. So she stopped inviting them over. She invited you more. She keeps asking about the past, about that thing that seems to plague her in the dead of night. You keep skirting around it, your replies always soothing and redirective. Initially, the avoidance and misdirection were intended for her benefit. Now, you're unsure who it's for. It's been pleasant to have your old friend back. She's her old self, with hints of her undesirable personality only coming through a few times. You fear that she'll shift back to that person, but her baser instincts seem to override it. For now. It feels like waiting for a bomb when you're not sure if the timer is even ticking. Her doctors say that she may never recover from the gaps in her memory, or that she may only remember partial details that make no sense without context. The second is the winner for most things involving you, but you refuse to provide any context, and the more time goes on, the more she seems to allow your tacit refusal. You help with physical therapy, helping her to eventually take longer walks down her street. You introduce her to your emotional support dog, Mochi, and you see the question in her eyes as she gives him affectionate kisses. You help her with cooking, especially when her motor skills don't function the way she'd like them to. There are times, late at night, when she cries over losing pieces of herself. You don't tell her that the pieces she's missing are better gone. Instead, you just hold her, and after she's calmed to a sniffle, turn on something relaxing to watch. She has 2 canes, and one is designated the fun cane for when she's feeling extra down. You two have decorated it with her favorite colors and crude stickers that you ordered from her favorite typography artist. You also replace the flowers you've given her whenever they're close to dying, scheduling them for auto delivery from the floral shop. They represent some strange metaphor to you now, as if letting them die completely would be like letting this, whatever this is, die too. She comments on your diligence one day, a lopsided grin indicating her pleasure at your commitment. You don't tell her that when you were in the hospital, you had allowed the bouquet she'd sent to droop, brown, and dry, right in front of your eyes, solidifying the imagery of that failed relationship. You've taken to inviting her over 1 or 2 nights a week. It's an apartment she's never seen. And when she asks where the framed pictures of the 2 of you are, you lie and say that you haven't gotten around to unpacking them. You suggest that it would be nice to make new memories instead. It's the weakest redirection you've ever given, but she doesn't question you. She just gives you a sad smile and breathes out, okay. Your hesitation at having her next to you some nights has abated too. There's a familiarity that you've missed, one you haven't found with anyone else. Her body always ends up halfway over yours in some way, even when your position isn't the most convenient. Her excuse is that it's better for the nerve pain that's resulted from some of her more serious injuries. You're not sure how true that is, but you also don't begrudge her the contact. You fall back into the old pattern of thinking of her before yourself. It's led you nowhere in the past, and yet, still, you can't help it. However, it feels that her approach to accepting that graciousness has changed. Her gratitude matches your kindness in its own way. She can't do much for you, especially not in her current state, but she tries to reciprocate as much as she can. You've come not to expect much from her as a person, yet she exceeds more than she ever used to do. It's become not only about what she does, but what she doesn't do as well. She'd always had a habit of making jokes at your expense, using flaws you were self-conscious about to deliver stinging punchlines. Even in her better times, it was something she'd always done. Now, she doesn't do that. You've even seen her catch herself mid-thought. You don't acknowledge the self-restraint, but you do take note. As she progresses in her recovery, so does her cognitive ability. And one day, it hits you. She hasn't asked questions about your past in at least a month. You both carry on, making up for lost time that only one of you truly knows about. But a part of you starts to wonder, just how much has come back for her? You catch her gazing at your arm sometimes. She doesn't ask anymore. But almost immediately after, she'll say something flattering. She doesn't bring up old pictures or old memories either, as if she knows it's a story that she won't like the ending to. Negative habits that have been ingrained in her since birth have stopped making an appearance. These things weren't signaling an absence of memory. They were decisions made by a person who remembered and didn't want to. You can't help but bring it up one night. You both are lying down in your bed, spooning each other for warmth against the AC that's keeping the summer's humidity at bay. She asks how long you will keep buying her flowers, laughing at how hard she tries to keep them from dying each time. You tell her for as long as it makes sense to. You don't say that it's for as long as she makes sense in your life. But her lack of response hints that she understands what you haven't said. So you ask, in the vaguest way possible, does she now remember what happened? If her long-drawn silence isn't telling enough, her next word is, no. It's spoken low, with a hint of guilt lacing her tone. And when she doesn't say anything further, that's when you know. You turn to face her, squinting to see a face illuminated by the glow of various electronics in the room. You could call her bluff, prove that she knows something you haven't told her. But you quell that urge, watching her in the darkness. Fingers creep over your hands under the covers and interlace themselves with yours. Her face belies her concern as she asks if you'll tell her. At face value, the question seems the same as it's always been. But it isn't. At this moment, it means something else. But you're willing to answer the same as you always have. You shake your head and say no. If you tell her, the bubble that you've managed to keep unpopped thus far will vanish. And you don't want it to. Not yet. But she doesn't let that be the end. Will you ever tell her? That question is weightier, and you feel yourself still. Answering feels like locking yourself into a future you aren't sure about. If you say yes, it means that there will be an end to whatever fragile thing you've built. If you say no, it means that you're extending forgiveness you're not ready to give yet. So you settle on. Only time will tell. She breathes out that sigh again, the one that tells you how on edge she's been. So you bring her close, slinging an arm around her shoulders, allowing her to bury her face in your chest. You're not promising forever, of course, but you are promising tomorrow, at least. And that's enough for now. This Platonic romance short was voted on by my Patreon members. If you would like to vote on the next one, feel free by signing up for my Patreon. You can find the link in my bio. Also, if you're not on Discord, come join us over there. We have some fun. And it's a great way to stay up to date on the things that I'm doing. If you haven't seen, there will be a live Q&A session on August 31st on my Discord in the voice chat. If you'd like to come with your questions, you can drop them in the comments below, or better yet, you can go to the Discord channel, questions and answer, and drop them there. Thanks for listening. Please comment, like, and subscribe, but definitely comment. I love to read your comments. I will see you in the next one.